Okay, very good. It is 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'll call this meeting of the Campus Reconfiguration Committee to order and ask Clerk Taylor to take the roll, please.
Carol. Here. Schoonover here. Manny.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Turk.
Here.
Frank. And Williamson. You have 5 present.
Very good. And are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting is properly noticed.
Excellent. Committee, you have before you a 13-point agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Manning, second by Perry to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. We also have the minutes from our last meeting, October 22nd. Anybody have questions, comments, corrections on those minutes? Hearing none, the chair will declare those to be approved as printed. Item 6 is public comment. I don't have any forms. Do we have any members of the public that want to comment here for the Campus Reconfiguration Committee? Anybody in person or online that wishes to comment? All right, then we'll move on to item 7, which is reports, starting off with an update from SEH.
So we have Nate Day and Brian Fukuda here to give us an update.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Nate Day, Brian Fukuda. Progress update. All right, so we had a little bit of delay there for the census data. That shut down for a bit, but we did get that back up and running. So go through some population trends, housing demand that we learned about, some development strategies for the property. And then we'll maybe have a brief discussion of some topics that probably shed some light on this, all of us. One notable projection is that Wisconsin's going to be losing 2,000 people. It is kind of severe compared to local trends. Younger population groups are shrinking while those over 65 are increasing for the final baby boomer group. So the implication that has on housing types, the aging population will increase demand for senior-oriented multifamily housing, while the younger folks stagnate or decline, limit demand for new single-family homes. The need for housing that accommodates both seniors' accessibility needs and younger buyers' technology requirements, meaning some of the older homes may not be fitted for Wi-Fi and different cabling that is needed for that. So they may be looking for newer type of places that offer that. The annual housing growth estimates, the county sees about 100 new households per year, give or take, with the city accounting for roughly a third of that. Projected that new single-family construction would likely not exceed 10 units per year due to limited builder availability right now. And there's been a decline of small speculative home builders over the past 15 years. One way the county could alleviate that is to incentivize development by installing infrastructure and selling lots individually. That would be an option. That approach has been successful in Whitewater and other locations that our team seen. Any questions about those trends or housing demand?
I don't have the best hearing, but I did hear you mention on the average size house that you're talking about, and one's for the elderly, do you have an average cost, what it takes for that type of home?
I don't have that with me right now. It's obviously going
A
out.
roundabout number, 250 maybe?
Yeah, I'd say you're probably looking at close to probably a minimum of 250 is kind of where, where things are landing.
That'd be probably 2 bedroom.
With housing costs the way they're going. So yeah, I mean, that's a trend that.
So that 250 is like a minimum you're saying now?
Yeah, I mean, for a decent new build.
And the cost of the property and all this, yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously things that can be done to try to control some of that, try to bring some of that down. With the county owning the land, obviously you can try to incentivize development by bringing the land costs down and bringing that cost down in that way. I think, other things that we're seeing, I think I might have shared a video with you about a housing project that's happening in Hillsborough. With just looking at manufactured housing, it probably conjures an image in your mind of what manufactured housing is, and that image is probably maybe a little bit outdated for most of us. So manufactured housing is a solution that folks are looking at, communities are looking at as far as a quality housing type that will help to try to bring some of that development cost down, just because they're able to be built a little bit more efficiently. But again, things that we'll look at. I think this first step of the first phase of what we're doing, what we've been doing, is really trying to get a handle on some of that market data. And now we can hopefully get into looking at some development scenarios and looking at some solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Yeah.
The housing stock, you mentioned 100 new households per year in general average. And yet new single family homes, only roughly 10 a year. What am I not, it seems like a disconnect. But is this just normal turnover in who owns a house, or what? It sounds like you need 100 each year, and yet we're not building that many. What does this 100 new households per year mean?
Well, the county sees about 100 new households per year. That was the data we gathered.
Right.
And the 10 units per year, probably, that's what it looks like it's going to be with the builder availability right now.
I think that 100, and we just got this data from our sub-consultant, and had a conversation with him just yesterday. So we need to, again, with, as Nate alluded to, there was some
Well, past my question.
some outlay. Yeah, but I think a part of it is I need to better understand what that 100 means. My interpretation of what that 100 means is that you see about 100 new households that are coming in. Some of that is going into existing housing stock. Some of that is going into multifamily. Some of that is going into new single family. And so the estimate is, probably about 10 new single family homes that you might see. Again, we'll shore up those numbers as he's able to kind of, the census literally just came back online on Monday. And so he was scrambling to try to put some of this together.
Okay.
But we will get a better handle on that. And
Yeah, we'll have more details once the final report. Do you want to go through development strategies?
Sure. So again, we're just starting to kind of brainstorm and figure out, based upon the data that we have, kind of what are some potential development strategies that could happen on this property. I think some of the housing numbers and just the builder availability and that sort of thing, again, is probably pointing us to a mix of uses on the site. Really nice that you've kind of already taken the first steps towards that with the work with the school district. And so that, I think was a smart decision, to move forward with that, to get some activity, to basically, get off your books, a couple of those buildings that are still viable, for future use. And so I think that's good. The other building that we see that, based upon when we toured the campus, and then just from a market standpoint, I think is that kind of event center, and student union building, the theater and student union building that, could end up, seeing there's enough. I guess there's enough decent bones on that structure that you could do some renovation, with some investment into the building to make it viable, for a future use that would, maybe introduce some entertainment, some food, some, that sort of thing that would add some value to the rest of the development and the community in general. So again, we'd like to explore that a little bit as we get it. I think, as some of the data pointed to, the senior multifamily housing is something that I think you would see some demand for. And by multifamily, we're not necessarily talking like an apartment building, but really more of kind of a zero lot line or a townhouse style development, something like that, that would have maybe some common amenities, but also common maintenance and that sort of thing. As seniors are looking to have, decent housing, one-story housing, but and not have the burden of maintenance. And so that's, I think, something that would be worth looking at. Some single-family conservation subdivision, I think there's been some talk of that already over the years, but I think especially, some of the, as you kind of work your way up the hill, not too far up the hill as you start to see issues with water pressure and that sort of thing. But a little ways up that hill where you could see some good demand, especially with the adjacencies to the school district, with some of the other amenities that are in the area with Simon's Center, which is a great amenity for residential uses. And then as I think you shared, some of the trail uses, things as the woods might be able to be further developed with those sorts of uses. So that's I think a good good potential use for some of the site. The other point on here is just talking through kind of infrastructure and parking considerations. And so, part of, I think, our next phase will be to kind of start to lay out some of these uses and start to better understand some of the infrastructure needs. Obviously, as you would develop potentially an event center or something like that in that student union and theater building, that brings parking demand. And so trying to figure out how, maybe work with the school district to address some of those needs. Or, is there need for additional parking, that sort of thing. And then also just trying to lay out and figure, I think that the road connection that you're talking about over to High Drive, I think would, it's a good step, but then trying to figure out kind of how that flows maybe through the rest of the site to make sure that the real estate is well accessed and valuable in that way. And then I think as we've talked about, and I think we've talked about it, kind of the demolition of the rest of those buildings and kind of clearing way where, given some of those adjacent uses, you could see some demand for some small commercial development, kind of health related, picture like a chiropractic office or, something like that. That doesn't require a ton of, doesn't have a lot of, utilities, doesn't have a lot of parking demand or a lot of traffic. But, you could see an accounting office or, something like that, that I think you could see, we could parcel off some area of that section for that use. And so that's some of the, uses that I think the data is pointing to could be acceptable, could be, in demand for the space. Again, I think maybe the next step is to really start to kind of divide up, look at infrastructure needs and divide up the land and start to kind of, at least, you don't necessarily need to like subdivide the land at this point, but if you can put together, we can put together kind of a bubble diagram that kind of shows this area would be good for this use, this area for this use. That's something that then we can start to put out to the development community, feedback on, and ultimately put out an RFP to get proposals on. So, any questions on any of that?
Any questions for folks from SEH?
Then I think next we just want to get a little discussion going about property sale, if that's acceptable. Just understanding exactly, what's being sold to the school district and parking lot, all of that.
I think I noticed there was a map in the packet for today, so that sheds a lot of light on some of the questions that we had coming in. So our understanding is based on that map. There's kind of that shaded area, so it would include the parking, that empty lot that would be would be part of the scope of the district.
Yes.
Okay.
And we haven't determined yet, we're gonna talk about it later, what goes to Simon's. If you wanna stick around,
Yeah.
we can be a part of that discussion.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, the map is, like I said.
Your reference is page 28 in the back.
It's page 13 in mine, because I think I asked the older packet, but everything, yeah, I think it's kind of towards the end. There is some floodplain that comes through there, and I know you're aware of that. There is, kind of that front parking lot right off the highway there, is not in the floodplain and could present an opportunity for kind of an additional commercial site there that would be road zone a little bit more, roadside commercial. Again, I think, you may wanna, consider, even some sort of deed restrictions or a development agreement that would maybe limit some of the uses there, just to make sure that, it's something that is gonna be valuable.
Did you say the parking lot was or was not in the floodplain?
That front parking lot is not in the floodplain.
We've always been told it is, right up to the.
When you say front parking lot, there's one on the east side of the property, there's one on the west side. Is it just the front part of the west side you're talking about, or
We'll
what?
talk about the
It's-
east side.
We're
The east
talking
side.
about, the one that's over by the building that was sold to the school district
Yep.
previously.
The one closest to the city.
Because I know where the offices are and stuff,
Yeah,
that was always, we were told right to the
Yep.
front door.
that's over on the west side.
Yeah, the large parking lot on the west side is all in the floodplain. Yep. Yeah, sorry, I was talking about that smaller parking lot that's right up by the highway. That one, is elevated enough that you could see.
Where do we have the map where we get rubbed out?
Do we have that?
The map should
Between
be,
the school district.
agenda item 9.
Yeah, it's part of the next item.
I'm talking about the one where we had tried to rub out what the school district was.
I think this map does show that.
Yeah, it would look like right there.
Put it all there, trying to.
Sarah?
Okay,
It's easier to read on the
That's
other
the
one.
school district.
that was. There we go.
Makes it one. Yeah.
Yeah, so that, this parking lot here is the one that I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
That I think you could fit, maybe a small commercial use in on.
But then that's got a bridge that's basically condemned to get to the rest of the property too.
That's one of our other questions. Talk through it, as we start to understand kind of the infrastructure needs, for any development that would happen out there, is the status of that bridge. So that one is basically,
That's always been my question. How much development we gotta have there would justify a second new bridge? And the first one was almost 700,000.
okay. Yeah, well, and I think, that's a big part of the conversation moving forward, I think, is that we want to, I think, understand, there's the new road that'll go in, kind of connecting Simon's over to Hive Drive. And, so is just maybe understanding, does that present an opportunity to connect into, the rest of the property? Kind of how, is it Bancroft, how, that, isn't isn't really a full,
Only decent bridge there right now is a walking bridge, so.
but, yeah. And then, but I do think, so that front parking lot that could present an opportunity for a small commercial use in there, wouldn't necessarily need to have, drive access to the rest of the property. It would really be, maybe more sold off as a parcel that you just, it'd be a pull in, pull out, off of the highway type of a use. Again, I think we want to be careful about what kind of uses we would at least, encourage and, again, we might want to consider some sort of a deed restriction or something like that for uses in that parcel, but you know, I think that could be a kind of a separate development that would maybe be, you know, and I guess the recommendation that I'm leaning towards on that would be more, that's maybe the last thing to go. Like, let's see, you know, there isn't a lot of like cost to hold that property. And so you might want to see kind of where everything else is going and then, you know, hold that as, you know, a future commercial site that might be able to add value to what else is happening there. Because it's kind of a more carry cost and you know, and again, could be just kind of a completely separate parcel. Like we had other questions that kind of came up, but do you have any other questions about anything else or anything that you read in the report that was part of your packet?
Seeing any questions right now?
Okay.
You're certainly welcome to stay and listen to the rest of them.
Yeah.
We talk about here, so thank you for coming here in person. We appreciate it.
Of course, yeah, thanks for having us. So, yeah, I think now that we have the data, I think things are gonna start moving a little bit quicker, and so. Be in touch.
Yeah. Very good. We will continue on with our reports and the UW redevelopment grant application update.
So that has been filed, and then they sent back a couple of corrections that we needed and changes we needed to make. We've done that, and now I am just waiting on them to respond back.
This is the last update, right?
I hope.
How close was you able to get to that 2 million?
We went over the 2 million. We did go over. She said if we don't hit the 2 million, then we lose it. We have to at least allocate for the 2 million. So there are some things we put in there that we're probably not going to be able to do. And so once we do get it approved, then I think we need to come back here and start prioritizing the order that we're going to
Easier
do.
to ask more and get less, right?
Yep.
Any other questions on the grant application? Mr. Carroll?
Do we have a feel for when we think they might turn it around?
We don't. I just sent her an email shortly and just asked if she had any updates.
Legislation stated we're first in line, so I would assume if others are waiting, that they're waiting to see what happens with us. Right, if we have no other questions on that, we'll move on to item C, Administrator's Report.
Just two main updates that I have. Number one, we are working on getting extension moved from Melville over to the Community Services Building. There is going to be an RFP that will go out because there is some remodeling that needs to be done. So we're aiming for February for them to be able to move. We're hoping that we don't have to move them prior to that, but if we do, we'll find temporary spots for them to go. And then the school district is in the process of working to get a surveyor to come out and survey the property. And so that is one of the reasons why we want to have an idea of what should be surveyed off for Simons, because they'll do both things while they're there.
The piano is gone.
Piano is gone.
Yes.
Thanks, Randy.
Mr. Carroll?
Is this the right time to ask the actual mechanics of transferring ownership? What are the steps and when would that happen?
I think when I talked with Steve, the first thing we really need to do is get that surveying done. And then I'm presuming that it'll be the attorneys working out those final details of everything.
Any other questions? If not, we'll continue on to item 8, a presentation from the City of Richland Center on a proposed subdivision. Some people may recognize some of this.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah, so this was,
For those who don't know, we have Center Mayor here. Also,
Hi.
yeah, and Jason Glassbrenner, who is Director of Public Works and Economic Development. And if they put 3 or 4 more things other on you yet, Jason?
right, we just keep juggling, don't we, Todd?
We'll be shoveling sidewalks in about a week.
Exactly.
Yeah, so some of you may recall that this was a presentation that we did actually publicly at the bowling alley back in September 13th of 2021, after substantial research efforts by the Richland Economic Development Group board that existed, which was a partnership between the county and the city. And since that time, things have shifted. That entity no longer exists, and I'm now employed fully under the city of Richland Center. But I thought it prudent to bring this back and say this has been an option for us for quite some time, and I'm absolutely delighted that we're back considering it. So let's go to the next one. So Mayor, I don't know if you want to take this one, but you're really good at expressing how many times personal testimonies come to us.
Yeah, I can do that. So what's been going on for longer than I've been mayor is an acute housing shortage. It's not close. And as you heard in the same studies we had, way too much of our housing stock in the city and the county is aged at this point. I don't remember that. Basically, a third of it is older than World War II and a third of it is older than 1970. And if you heard them say, aging population, they want what's called zero step. So no stairs. And yeah, maybe not the big yard to take care of it. It all makes sense, right? Well, we do have an aging population because the boomers are retiring and the birth rate just keeps getting smaller. So that's a reality. And also young families don't tend to be looking for the house I grew up in. They want what they want the same way every generation always has. And that has caused a problem because, as you heard, 10 new houses a year is not going to it's not creating a lot of that stock. Well, we live in a county with a lot of rugged terrain. We all know that. And a lot of floodplain. We all know that, which creates all these challenges of where you can build and what you can build. It gets in the way. So yes, both buyers, people living here, and builders have been stating that the demand is moving to duplex townhouse, that style, multifamily, that doesn't have a lot of maintenance and has no steps anywhere. Okay, those that want a house, which they're out there too, they're pretty specific. It's got to have good Wi-Fi. That's almost number one now. Got to have good Wi-Fi. They want a good floor plan, and of course the garage, if it isn't a 2-car, it has to be a 3 now. That's where the world went. That kind of stuff.
2 cars on the UTV, right?
That's it. Actually, it is. Out here, it is. It's wild what that did. Okay, so major employers here. Dave, you were there. In the spring this last year, one of the biggest employers in the city hit us pretty hard, and they were pretty blunt about the demographic trend throughout the Driftless region because they employ people beyond the county line, but they hit us hard because they're here. And they said this: we have 330 full-time employees. Nobody at headquarters is telling us it can't be 700 except there are no people to hire and nowhere to put them. And they said, we need the city and the county to show us that you mean it, so we know we should continue to invest here. It was a threat from one of the biggest employers in the city. Just be sat up straight. Get it built was the message. Find it. And so we've been doing that, trying to turn over every rock. Where can you build? What can you build? Talking to builders, talking to everybody else. So
let's hit the next slide.
Yeah, go ahead, please. This again is 4 years ago, and it was talking about what I just said and what they just said. This isn't a new thing. It's just kind of dragging. Go ahead when you want to jump back in.
Yeah. I mean, we've had the hospital sent me a personal letter back in 2020. The conditions haven't changed, right? It was presented back then. The hospital said this is how many executives we have and how many actually live in Richland Center versus out of town. We consistently hear that, you know, that your upper level management can't find places to stay. They migrate someplace else. They take jobs other places. So while the population is declining, the truth of the matter is there's enough interest in the Midwest and the type of living that we have that there's an opportunity for us if we have the housing stock. Go to the next one. So you guys had mentioned which one? Hillsborough. So Hillsborough, when we did the research on them in 2021, had used a CDBG grant to put in the infrastructure in the subdivision, and they were selling off lots for $5,000. At that point in time, when I drove through Hillsborough, they had roughly 5 or 6 new homes going up per year. in Reedsburg, or in Hillsborough. Schulzberg went to an extent where they've given away lots for $1. Everything in these smaller communities is generally pointing to, you give us the infrastructure and you give us the land and we'll consider building there. So this is not something that we'll make the land available at 30,000 an acre or more like 70,000 a lot, which is the current infrastructure cost per lot, and we'll build something. They aren't going to. They're going to say, give me the land and give me the infrastructure. So let's go to the next one. These are numbers that I had back then, 2018, 80 home sales, 2019, 85, 2020, there were 81. In 24, the sales were 119 inside the city limits of Richland Center. In 25, we're hovering around 90 at the last time they reported, which is roughly, they haven't reported obviously this last quarter. So the current number of houses for sale in the city limits of Richland Center is 12. The healthy stock, as recognized by the real estate industry, is about 6 months worth of supply. According to that number, we should have 40 homes on the market right now in Richland Center. We have 12. And if you look at the market, it is unique. We have everything from the home that's across the street here, that's got a lot of history tied to it. My brother owns that one, to some other very unique properties that are quite expensive, to houses that are broken down, but we don't really have a good cross section of what you'd consider healthy middle-age housing, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. We have continued to research, to ask people, do you have available land? Where can we do this? How do we do infill? The county and the city had partnered on infill housing, where you guys, you sold us a lot that you had taken on tax deed for $1. You did it twice. We brokered deals. There's one new house standing, not sold. The other lot is still sitting empty. It is in a developer's hands, but we consistently try to cycle that back out. As you can tell, it's slow going, right? We're looking at how we, can be most buildable. What's the most desirable location? We consistently look at all these things. We look at what cross-section of housing we need. Do we have enough single family? Do we have multifamily? Do we have upper scale, lower scale, mid-price? We're looking at all of that, at that data. And the reality is, until just recently, with projects that we currently have in the queue here, we weren't fulfilling any of these needs. Currently, we have dirt moving at Panorama Building 2. That hopefully results in 95 new units out there. So that will take care of market rate apartment housing. Currently, we're here tonight to talk a little bit further with you about the possibility of doing a housing subdivision would take that segment of the market and hopefully, create some ease on it. Then what typically happens is you have a migration of the people from houses that they're looking to move out of into newer locations, leaving the older locations, which hopefully come at a price that are more reasonable and able to be acquired by first-time home buyers. We also continue to move forward on the development of zero-step entry duplexes here, 16 units there. So we are progressing. The thing that we're missing is single-family housing. Let's head to the next one. You guys all are aware of this. It was brought up tonight. Many of you have talked about it in the past of how this can develop, both the county, all the county, the high school, Simons, and the city. And it can be done in ways to honor and highlight the park and recreation areas. Mike is back here. He's a pro at that stuff, wanting to make sure that what we have is very attractive and livable. We need the housing and the revenues associated, and honestly, the most important part, which is the human capital. It's the people that we need. Let's go to the next one. You've already seen this. It's about 137 acres that the county owns. Let's go to the next one. We're now drilling down into the land that's west. Is that right? No, that'd be to the north of the campus. Next one. We can continue to drill down. This is the hilltop that's back there that could be easily preserved into some type of county forest situation, natural habitat. We're well known for that. People love that. Next one. Here's some of the water elevations that were talked about. I just met with all of the public utilities team this morning. We've hashed this through dozens of times. We do have some concern over elevations for water service, but as far as sewer and water, we would come off of Hive Drive and we would move to then what is the east. Let's go to the next one. This is the phase one that was proposed back in 2021. It wasn't actually my idea. It was, I think Dale Bender had come up with the initial sketch for these when he was running utilities.
That's right.
I just redrew it. I haven't had this reviewed by an engineer. Again, we've done it all in-house. It does look a little bit crude. We'd love to take it to the next level, but in the interest of preserving taxpayer dollars, we're not going to do that until we're pretty sure that we have a great partnership formed here and we're ready to rock. Yep.
So if you look at that, again, Dale Bender did draw that up, and that's been several years ago. So it was presented in 21. He did it long before that. But what we had thought at the time, so Hive Drive, when this was drawn, wasn't even a city street. It is now. And you see how the proposed street would have come off. And then you just explain how high up you can go before you run out of water pressure up there. And the idea was just, we've said, the struggle with getting a subdivision with single family houses here is we haven't been able to find land we can do it on. So the key here for me, there's two. One, there is a wonderful field not far from the city that we would love to put houses on. It's tailor-made. Getting infrastructure in there, bare minimum $3.5 million. That's why it hasn't happened. Who's got $3.5 million? So believe me, the builder's going to say, we're not paying for that. Because if they did, they'd be selling the lots, 80,000, 100,000. How many times you see that happen here? Not a lot. So you need land. When you have land that has utility infrastructure that close, wow. I mean, that changes the whole thing, okay? And then the fact that city utilities are right there, the fact that that's a city street feeding it, and the county owns the land. You guys are talking about grant money. We're gonna talk about some grant money. I've been mayor 5.5, almost 6 years now, and I haven't seen that I haven't seen anywhere near that combination in one place. So that's what we wanted to make sure you folks all knew. This had been attempted in 21, and the reason it didn't happen was because the campus was still operating. And so this land, of course, was in a lease, right? You can't just do that. And even if we could have done that, the folks at the campus were actually afraid of this. The plat bill would say we were moving on and trying to shut down, which was not the intent, but that's the pushback we got. So we went, ooh, thanks. But otherwise, those houses, several would be there, just on Dave and I talking a little bit and me making 2 phone calls. 2 builders have called me and said, I want to build some of that if you ever do it. So that's what I have.
Let's go to the next one, see if I've got any comments on that one. At that time, there was concern about the unsightliness of homes being above the campus. It's shielded by pine trees. They may not be there forever, but at this point, I think we probably passed that stage of, we want nice houses, but when you're a community that's struggling like we are, we can't dictate our future on, it's not the color I wanted, you know? So we got to move here. Next one. Yeah, that's just going up Hive Drive. That's approximately where the road, both for the connection that you guys are looking at and where we would anticipate a road branching off into that area for housing. Next one. We did talk about phasing further. Again, I think there are some good ideas out there about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. These are really rough, and understanding there's people a lot better at kind of comprehensive planning than, you know, that's not my profession, but through the conversations that we've conducted, I had some with Mike. Mike's had some great ideas through engineers. This generally is viewed as a positive direction to consider. Even when you consider phase 2, phase 3, which, like I said, once you got into the design element, you would figure out the pieces that fit appropriately. Is there another one, or is that it? That's it. Okay. So the really exciting part about this is that, as you are probably well aware, we have been working for some time with a developer to do some additional development up above Allison Park. Right now, there's some uncertainty around that, and we actually have at least $1.5 million that the city could contribute to putting in the infrastructure necessary for that development. So we don't know for sure the cost of it because we have not done estimated cost to construct. We have not had an engineer do that. But we could very quickly, but what we would need is the firm partnership of the county to say, we think this is a great idea. Lots of people, including our current consultants, are coming up with this idea. We hereby, commit to saying we think it's a good idea. Please do a little bit more research. This grant money that we've got to move on. So we don't have a lot of time to sit and wait for it. We've been trying to process it for some time. It's a congressional community project funding grant. It was $2.5 million originally for infrastructure for the hospital. Of course, the hospital project got delayed. We can't afford to bury infrastructure where there's going to be no immediate development. We can't bury tax dollars and not get a return on them. So that's why we began looking for other opportunities. Interesting enough, Hive Drive has been slated by the city as a destination for part of these grant funds. Part of the $2.5 million, the city has agreed that they will partner with the school to improve Hive Drive. That means sidewalk, lighting, and stormwater improvements to Hive Drive. It would be very, very easy for us to gain an economy of scale, to ramp up that project even larger, to tag on to a developer for the infrastructure to go ahead and create that housing subdivision. There would be lots of terms, of course, that I'm sure you guys may be interested in having down on paper, but if I can throw it out there, really what we would be looking to do is have the county say, you do the land, city, you come up with the infrastructure. So we're putting in the 1.5 million, and then we'd have to agree on what everybody thinks is a reasonable price for land. Again, you've seen and you've heard testimony that you've got subsidized land prices everywhere from it's $1 to $5,000, $10,000 or a market rate lot. I would suggest if we want quick turnarounds, we'd be looking at something closer to the $1 than the 70,000 per lot that's going to cost to put it in. We do have other partnerships that we're working on. You may be familiar with that, but Southwest Regional Planning Commission, as well as Prosperity Southwest, have been working for some time on creating a kind of a housing collaborative. Brett White of Southwest Cap has been working with a manufactured home provider. So it's not a mobile home, it's a manufactured home to create an economy of scale there. So there's even things that we could potentially explore, like we want housing so bad, we're gonna do this, we're gonna find a local bank partnership and we're putting in 3 of the Brett White housing collaborative houses immediately. So that we've got new housing stock. So there's lots of things to explore there, but I think, Mayor, I'd let you really speak to that, but I'd be excited to work on it. And I think my sense is the council would be in favor. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely they are. They are because we've been chasing this stuff for years and the challenges are crazy and the demand is huge. We can't miss. We've got to get housing here. We have to do this to grow the tax base. Everybody knows how hard it is to do the budgets here. And we've got to stave off the population decline that's already started. It already started. Why isn't Walsh's open on Sunday anymore? Why isn't Richland Family Restaurant open every night anymore? They used to be, because they can't find people to work. We're already there. Ask the school district how the population goes down. As the kids get younger, there's less of them, all the way down. Okay, this is real, guys. It's not out there, we're in it. So when this comes around, the challenges are always, what land can you get? And then where, the biggest one that people overlook, where's the infrastructure? I do have more, but I have a question. So the campus buildings have had city utilities, yeah?
Yeah.
So where are we there? Like updates that might be any of that stuff. That stuff was built in the 60s. Is it adequate or is it gonna have to be?
So according to the water utility manager, he says that 1966 water lines are 6 inches and they're iron. And at this point, they would be perceived as reaching their end of life. So that's water condition. Sewer condition is all it's all gravity flow into the main line that's out in front. The main line out in front is pretty good, but all of the lines that have traditionally served the campus are they're county owned. They don't belong to the city. So any problems that arise with the sewer, the water, or the electric on the campus are all the county's responsibility. And now if the school's getting involved, it's going to be their responsibility. What we see, right, the trend is obviously for that to move out of private ownership because, again, the private developer can't make any money having to deal with all the infrastructure and then plan on maintaining it for the next 30, 40 years. So we would anticipate that any developer that approaches the county is going to say, great, how do we get to the city for sewer, water, and electric? And so our response is, well, we either have to have a grant, we have to have a TIF district that we're willing to form, then, and there's various types of that. Right now, we're probably primed for a blighted TIF district because I think we can prove blight on the campus.
Can I touch on that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, 6 things I've listed so far as I've listened as some questions or comments. And you just reminded me of one of them. Maybe nobody else here. I don't know much about how TIF districts.
I was just gonna go there.
And I would want to go to a class or a primer or have it explained and who does what and whether it makes sense for this. I want to know, I just don't know.
So on a TIF, the reason he just said what he did, which believe me, I'm gonna get into, the unique nature here, we'd have to find out if this qualifies as a blighted property. 80 million to fix it, right? Right?
I think that was the first number we got.
Right? How many buildings are sitting there vacant? And how many of them didn't have utilities last winter? Does that sound blighted to you? Did you just tell me there's a bridge that's condemned? Sounds blighted to me.
Condemned, I said it's very light in the.
Okay, that's good, that was good, good cover. But we all know, the buildings, a lot of, stuff. So it may very well qualify as blighted. If it qualifies for blighted, what a TIF does, and we're not gonna do the whole thing, because you're not gonna learn it all in one night. Basically, the city, county, schools, Southwest Tech, all the entities supported by local property taxes approve the TIF. And what happens is that the builders love this. Because what happens is a portion of their property tax that they pay every year is returned to them to pay down the debt they incurred to get the building done. So the reason the state has tight rules on this, because you can't unduly enrich an entrepreneur. You can't form an LLC and say, give us 40 million in a TIF and we'll build whatever you want. It has to be, they need the money. This is why this is the public benefit. Once that gets reviewed, then the joint review board, which has all of us on it, every entity on it, could approve that TIF. Now what you've got, depending on how much money you needed, could be 20 years, 30 years, whatever, timeline on this thing, where the reason you got to think this through is because a bunch of that property tax that would have hit your budget is tied up paying that back. So again, for the area where the buildings are, a TIF makes a ton of sense because it might be money you could use to demolish the buildings and get them out of there and maybe fix that bridge. For the area on the hill, putting it in a TIF might not be bad, but might not be necessary because there's nothing to get, you don't need that money to demolish. And because you're gonna want the tax revenue as soon as they're built. Okay, so what we're saying is, trust me, for the love of God. When the land is owned, when the street inn is owned, when the utilities are there, when it's in the city, it doesn't have to be annexed. This doesn't happen here. To have all of these things in one place, he just told you we have 1.5 million and you wanna know what? We gotta use it. HUD's got our money, waiting for us to say what we're doing. We can't use it for the hospital because they kind of didn't build it. So now it's, what do we do? Well, housing, right? So the other project we're trying to do might still happen, but we've got some slowdowns. So we thought, let's get back over here while you guys work through this. This thing has the most potential of any spot I've ever seen to put single family housing here, because you don't need 3 million, 5 million, whatever, to get water, sewer, electric, and a street in there. What you're gonna need is to run a street off Hive Drive, which you're already talking about doing. So that's gonna be a street and curb and gutter. And then you're gonna have to figure out what it costs to get utilities in there, and the builder's gonna have some excavation costs. Anywhere else you go, oh, that's true, plus you have to buy the land, plus you have to put in all this other stuff. Builders are gonna be in love with this. And think about this. So Panorama 2 just started. There's already one building, second one started, will be a third in the future. But the school district's not leaving. You start putting houses on that hill, look to the future. I've been in constant conversations with Chuck Schaefer's family. That farm to the west is gonna be, I don't know when, they haven't made any decisions. There's gonna be more development out there, not less.
Mr. Carroll.
Next, the second or third slide, you mentioned talking with Southwest Wisconsin Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that? You
Sure.
mentioned-
I met with them this week. We were talking about housing, challenges still. We were talking about meeting with some of our larger industry leaders and how they expressed that, at the spring meeting that, they, specifically Rockwell said, we want to add 150 people. And the consensus in that roundtable was it's still housing. It's still housing. So I was reviewing that with Southwest Regional Planning. He mentioned Brett White again. We had that conversation. So they're just consistently seeing that throughout the regions they represent. And he said, you need to get the land and da. So the same conversation we're having tonight.
I've got three questions. One is Derek. I gotta go soon. Will we still have a quorum?
Yeah, you'll have 4, you have 7 on the committee, so you'll have 4, so no one else
Who
will
will
be.
not be leaving for town board? Number one, I'm pretty sure I know the new house you're talking about that's not sold yet. So give me some information on that. And number two, we have a development already in place, roads, infrastructure and all that, and things aren't selling there. Why do you think that house isn't sold, and why do you think that property is not being developed?
Can I answer the house?
Sure.
Because they overbuilt. I know the guys.
I can't hear you.
Okay, the guys that bought the lot on First Street, love them. They tried to impress. So they had to build on a slab because the water table's 5 feet down. They couldn't put a basement, so they put a 2-bedroom to fit the lot. Now I have a 2-bedroom, no basement, and from there we showed off. They spent $30,000 just on the appliances.
Yeah.
So they
I
did,
wondered what happened there.
Well,
That's a house we took care of.
yeah, they just overshot on the cost. They put in the best cabinets, the best counters, heated floors, 30 grand on the appliances, would put their costs way up here. That's the only, there've been a lot of people interested in it. And then they always, if it was 300K, I'd buy it. Well, they're in over we are way over that in their cost.
It's not the best neighborhood in the world.
300 would do it, but they spent more than that to build what they built.
Yeah, so it's,
We know we're talking about Turkey Glen.
Oh, Turkey
I
Glen.
drive there every day and I can't, why there's only been 2.
Go ahead, you got that one.
yeah, it's because the cost to develop, in a location like that where it will never be subsidized. I mean, the developer who put in those lots is never gonna say, I'll eat $30,000-$40,000 a lot or 50 or 60. They don't have any sewer, right? And they don't have water, so they gotta do well and septic. So they're buying a lot at 40, they're spending another, whatever it is now, 30 on a septic system and 20 on a well. So what are they? They're almost 100,000, they're 80 to 100,000 before they touch the dirt. By the time they get the concrete in and their excavation done in a place like that, they're $200,000 in and they haven't put a stick of wood on the foundation.
What's going on?
And
Yeah.
they're tight in there, so you really spend. So the people that looked at those lots, the ones that I heard about, when they could, they ended up, you know where Pheasant Branch, across from the fairgrounds up where Pete Walsh is. They wanted something like that.
I heard the lots there at 32,000, but that's not gonna be a deal breaker one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I couldn't understand. That's a nice location other than the little petting zoo that's out there. But other than that, you know, it's close to the golf course. It's got a lot going.
Mr. Carroll, go ahead.
Did you get your questions, Gary, before you leave?
I did.
Okay. Earlier this year, I went to the Driftless Housing Summit in Hillsborough, just on my own. And I saw those manufactured houses they were putting in. Once they're done, you can't tell. I mean, they don't look like a manufactured home. They're very nice units. Do you guys see those kind of units as part of phase one, or is that more of a phase two, phase three thing?
I mean, that is a discussion for the community, you know, for the decision makers. I mean, initially we were talking that at being more of a mid-level home. The problem is, and the guys highlighted on again, is that housing is so expensive right now. If you're talking about a mid-level priced home, you're $500,000-$600,000. Well, our local area median income they can't support that. So I'll give you an example of where housing really is, even at entry level, is and I would encourage you to reach out to NHS to have these numbers verified. It's my understanding that NHS has close to $300,000 in the house that they just did at the corner of Kinder and Larson. It's a nice little ranch home, 2-car garage, probably 1,500 square foot, close to 300,000. For NHS to be able to market that to the local area median income, they have to market it at 200,000. So they're subsidizing that house, and I'm using approximation. So again, please verify the information, but it's my understanding they're subsidizing that house will likely be close to the $100,000 mark.
So my point is, for this potential phase one division, are we maybe aiming too high to put a conventional house, and maybe we need to rethink whether maybe those manufactured houses might be more hitting what's financially reasonable here?
I would suggest, so I've spent a lot of time talking to the government over in Baroque, and they've got a lot of construction coming in the next year because they were able to buy 23 acres from a farmer, and all 23 is sold. Commercial along the highway and houses behind it. What they did is they called a lot of builders, so they're not in bed with one and waiting for a house and waiting for a house. They have several builders building about 3 apiece. Okay, so they brought them in and talked to them. What do we need to build? Where's the market? And I would do that because you're going to hear zero step, you're going to hear 3-car garage, but you're going to hear cost. You're right on it. Where's the sweet spot to sell them? And my advice, and this is whether this happens or whether somebody owns 20 acres and you're going to parcel it off. Bring people in and ask them this stuff and zero in on this, and don't tie yourself to one builder because they're getting them built faster by having multiples build a few apiece, which makes a lot of sense. And then they let them teach them where their market was. They thought they knew, but a builder's gonna know because he doesn't want to build anything he can't sell.
I think the answer is yes. I think that we would want to look at the most economical level of home while still holding some standard up for some design features that keeps it attractive.
Other question?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have just even a rough number, what the total infrastructure number might be. You have 1.5 potentially available, but do you guys maybe have rough round numbers for the infrastructure for a development area similar to this? I mean, just to start talking.
So that's, I think, why his point right away was that's what we would want is some kind of consent from you guys to work with us to go get some engineering done, whether they do, whoever, to do that. This is what you do and this is how much it costs to get it right. You can't get anywhere till you do that. I'm sure they agree with that.
I can get an estimated cost to construct from either, we consult with 2 engineering firms, so either one, I'd probably reach out to Beerbrick Engineering because they've been assisting us a lot on projections on estimated cost to construct. I think I could have something in a couple days. They'd probably pull it together based on their experience from development within the last year.
Go ahead, Sue.
Did I understand you think elevation and water pressure is an issue for potential sites?
You had a line on the slide. There's a bunch of land that's good. There's a point on the hill where you get too high. It was marked
That's
on.
what I'm asking. What's too high and why do you think that's too high?
You can't get adequate water pressure. When you get too high, you can't push adequate pressure.
So here's my question. What if you built a small ground storage tank up in the woods?
That I don't know.
I don't even, we'd have to review that with utilities. I did talk to them about individually pressurizing each home and well, they do that for, you know, septic sewer systems, sanitary sewer system. They individual run mini pressurized lines if you have a problem with elevation or depth. So I asked them about that and they said, no, that's probably not best. They did suggest we might want to look at a booster, but all of those things do come out, like you're suggesting, when we start to do finer analysis on the capability of the infrastructure that's there. What we do know is that Hive Drive has the water line necessary and the sanitary sewer line necessary to support any development that would be to the east.
Question, Steve.
Yeah. New topic, totally separate. In terms of overall housing needs in the area, I had not looked to see if your building codes and ordinances allow ADUs. Is that something you guys have thought about, auxiliary dwelling units?
Yeah, it's interesting you're mentioning it because the comprehensive plan that the city did a few years ago specifically outlines that we need to transition to zoning that accepts ADUs. And the city administrator is actually working on redrafting an ordinance right now that would move all property in the city to an R2, which would allow for ADUs on individuals' properties. And the reason,
Potential with that.
huh?
Is that
Yes,
a lot of potential? I have no idea.
well, we believe so.
Okay,
We haven't done it yet, but we think so.
okay.
We were just, we are right on, we hadn't talked to this committee for a while, but we're right on the same points you seem to be on. We're trying to do what you're asking.
Anybody else? Mr. Manning, go ahead.
Just for an informational type of thing, if you ever approach people that own that trailer park, as I've understood, it's been for sale a couple of years, and I'm thinking we get rid of, I can't even find a polite word for it. And we have a lot of infrastructure in there, electric and sewer and all that. And I don't think it'd take that much to buy it, and it would sure get rid of a lot of police problems.
Yes, sir. Now, one issue, because we did look at this in the same era, 2020, 2021. So you really can't use what goes back there as a city street if you try to make it what this ordinance calls for. So access is an issue, for one thing. So one way to help that is have a street coming from the other side.
That's what made me think of all, like your already phase 3, that would go right into there. And now, when you talk about water pressure and stuff, all of our tanks are at basically the same elevation, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it would be difficult pushing it up there, and that would, without getting down to them houses above that elevation, just have to drill their own wells.
That's probably the
Yeah.
easiest solution, although when we're looking at utilities in a city-owned utility, we want to make sure that we're factoring in. We're really looking at it closely because the utility does generate revenues and is a good service for the city. So we want to make sure they're involved and not just say wells, so. Plus there is a process that, the DNR wants to protect the water table. So, the city has adopted ordinances that say we want to do that. But to your point, there will be a way for development to occur higher. We just need to work through the details.
Other questions? You mentioned a timeline on the money that you have available. How tight is that timeline?
We were supposed to have the grant project submitted at the end of August, and we have had delays. And like I said, so when we recognized that the county was talking about, really potentially looking at what makes sense there, and we're struggling to allocate, we thought, well, this may be a good first stop. Of course, it would have to go through council to make sure that they approved of reallocating, but we would really like to see the Hive Drive improvements done. I think with housing being such an important thing, that depending upon what that estimated cost to construct comes back at, I think there's a really good chance that, we get that entire area done, but we need to keep going.
So you think this would make us more money than $50 an acre we're getting for land right now?
Geez, it might.
Little bit. The nice thing about this would be is if we could do it outside of TIF, okay? We can do it outside of TIF. The current money that you're making is $50. And the reason is it's county owned, so it's non-taxable land. So the increase in taxes that you would be receiving from this, right, is from $1. So if that ended up being, 15 homes at, whatever, 300,000, that's 4.5 million, 4.5 million times the approximate mill rate on fair market. Let's say it's 900,000 a year. You split that 3 ways, so a completed subdivision probably equates to some amount of revenue close to 300,000 for each of the entities involved in the gaining of tax revenue.
Most important thing would be it is net new construction.
Well, yeah, and without a TIF, it hits as soon as they're built on January 1st. It hits, and out of 18 houses, you probably won't get them all up in like a year, but over not a long time, you start popping those in there. Gonna need it. We're gonna need it. The schools are gonna need it. It's money, right?
Something we haven't had happening countywide with the appreciable factor for quite some time. That new construction, so. Okay, any other points you guys want to?
I don't.
Thank you for coming and sharing the info. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us in, and yeah.
One more.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I want to get smart on TIFs. Do I talk to you guys or how do I?
You wanna do that?
You can come talk to me, Steve. The reality is it's not a tool that the county has access to.
You need.
It's only a tool that's the municipality
And that's
can.
why I wanted to understand.
But I'm glad to talk with you, and within 10 minutes, you'll have a great grasp of it.
Hey guys, everybody here, thanks for allowing us in here. I would do this anytime you'll let us do it. And if you have any questions, either one of us are always right there. Because this is like critical to all of our future, the whole housing issue and the net new construction. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 9, discussion and possible action, designation of land to be transferred to the Simon Center.
So this is something that SEH has asked for, and now that the school district is there doing some surveying with their property, it would be nice if we designated what we were thinking of allocating to Simons. I did ask them to create a map and give us a proposal as a starting point. So that is in your packet.
Okay, so I'm assuming the map here is the orange dashed lines?
Yes.
At least they look orange on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. And so this is what we are proposing to draw the line as this boundary will be the Simon's property. Mike, did you want to comment on that at all?
Really, I mean, didn't answer any questions, I guess, but I guess just as a reminder, Simon's property is county property right now. And you know, it could be sold off later, parts of it, or parceled off later, parts of it, but just obviously, first crack at it, we just kind of took the existing trails and kind of squared that off as best we could, rather than doing a bunch of jagged lines. Squared it off a bit, you know, left obviously the hillside there for the development that the guys were just talking about, put in the school district land in there. I threw in a couple of really rough stormwater management areas, because one thing you have to remember is, once you start putting gray infrastructure in there, you're gonna have a lot more stormwater runoff. So we're gonna have to have stormwater management areas, bioswales, that type of thing, which are easy to do and which will actually work really well in the parcel there, because you can make them, if they're green infrastructure, we can make them look very natural and everything. So, so yeah, that's kind of I guess the main thing and kind of the first kick at it. And again, we were kind of looking at that land that's a little less desirable for development because it is higher up elevation, so there's not as attractive in the cost of building and that type of thing. The connection, we kind of connected the Simons area there to the trail network, or to the trails. And like I told Trish, that little narrow area in there, which is access to the trails, that wouldn't necessarily have to be owned. Eventually, that could be an easement simply to get up to the trails, but you would need, you know, you want some kind of trailhead or some kind of parking to get up into those trails. So, you know, that could be that could even be an easement down the road.
So this is our first crack at it. I talked about.
Yeah, I think one concern would be is, you know, if Simon's ownership does change, do we really want the trails to go to the new owner? So it's possible that we would look at potentially like a lease or a MOU with Simon's for those trails. As long as the county city owns Simon's.
Under the current structure, it's not a problem.
Yes.
But and there is a study going on to see what the best ownership and operation structure for Simons is. It's just getting underway. So if it were to change someday to be in, say, a private nonprofit's hands, does the county want all that to be part of what goes with it? Or do we want to say, well, this is a county recreation trail and we'll certainly work with Simons as it's currently operating or whoever is operating it in the future to say, yeah, we'll give you access to it. But it remains with the county. Is that, Trish and I kind of talked about
things like deed restrictions and things, or maybe we just need to talk to a lawyer.
That's certainly something we can talk about.
Trish, I got a question on the tennis court out there. I was by there last week. The fence around it's in really bad shape. Are we responsible for that or
Yes.
we are?
Yeah, we do have in our grant, the refurbishing of the tennis courts. So if the grant approves it, that is something that we can start to work on. I know Mike had applied for a grant and it didn't go through, but that is something that is on the list of wants is to,
2 million.
yeah.
There was a separate grant that was applied for by Simons, and we didn't wind up receiving that grant. It was a different kind of recreational type grant. We didn't get awarded, so they were looking at perhaps having a fundraise or something like that to come up with the money. Well, we built it into the 2 million grant that we're getting for redevelopment. Other questions or thoughts as you look at this?
So Steve, if I can ask, if we work with an attorney, what questions do you want me to ask?
Well, just what are the best tools for us preserving those trails? That's all.
Okay.
The recreational value, however you want to say it.
Well, we'll note on the map, it does say the Marty Brewer Nature Trails, yay. So there is a project that's going to be happening for signage and stuff with that, right, Mike?
We did get a grant for that and that's approved, so they'll start January 1st. We can start on this.
Right, so I think that's something we'd want to have answered before we made the final decision, but as far as we look down farther towards, any issues, just trying to eyeball the little white thing that has Simons, the word Simons over it, that's your actual building that you have right now, correct? Right there, where the cursor's indicating. And so there is allowance for enough space next to that there could be an addition put on the building, or solar panels could be moved over there in an addition behind the building, given these current boundaries. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more, we talked about it a little bit, and it's more advantageous for Simons to have the property behind the building. The way the sun is right now, so the solar panels right now are just to like 20 feet or so behind the building. By 3 o'clock this time of year, they're in the shade, so we're not getting full. We're only getting solar power from, whatever, 8 or 9 a.m. until 3 p.m.
And there's a reason they're there. That's where we could negotiate with the Board of Regents to get them installed originally. They didn't want them over towards the active campus side, so.
And if we move those to the east side of Simons, it's gonna be the same problem where we're gonna have that shaded side. So preferably, we prefer to go up the hill behind Simons a little bit more, that elevates it a little higher. Ultimately, if there was an addition onto Simons at some point, we'd probably recommend a roof system strong enough to put the solar on top of the roof. That would take care of a lot of problems. So it's more advantageous for us behind Simons as it is to the side of Simons, but.
And preserving them does make financial sense because they do reduce energy costs quite a bit, don't they?
Yes, I don't remember the actual, it's about 20% of our annual electric use is covered by those solar panels, returned by the solar panels.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want us to bring back next month when we talk about this again? If you think of anything, email me.
Okay.
Will be some ongoing conversations with the city before our next meeting, maybe with administrators, or what's going to happen to see if this keeps moving?
I think we'll have to have it as a discussion point at our meeting next month.
Yeah, tonight it was just an informational presentation from the city. If we want to discuss and consider it, that'd be an agenda item for our next meeting.
So will the next step be our next meeting or executive and finance?
probably this committee,
Yeah.
whenever we meet next. And then we'd have to make a recommendation to executive and finance if we wanted to actually do something with it. And then it would flow upwards to the whole county board eventually, so.
I think it's important that we have some conversations before the next meeting with SEH or having SEH at the next meeting when we have that discussion. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, as well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As well, I don't know that we've had a chance to talk with SEH, but, I think we've got a lot of information that we could share with you, and maybe there's things in the conversation that would quickly come out that we weren't factoring, but I feel like our presentations were along the same lines, so being able to have a chance to chat with you about, you know, how the city perceives things would be great.
Absolutely. Yep, we're getting into that right now, so we'll start reaching out to you, Jason, others.
All right, anything else on the property line draw?
I just got one question.
Just go ahead.
for Simon Center. Why do you want those walking trails? Is there a reason?
I don't necessarily want them for Simons, and I think if Simons ever did go nonprofit, I think Simons, the board would probably want that to go to the city or the county to remain public. Because I don't want Simons to ever charge someone to use those trails. They should remain public. I guess because they've always been there, and because it's on land that really can't be developed.
Yeah.
They make an attractive park or an area for housing developments. You know, developers are gonna come in, and that's gonna be a very big attraction for them because they've got a nice big green space in the back there. So it's not necessarily for Simons, it's for me, as I guess as a resident, more so as a Parks and Recreation guy. I like seeing those trails out there.
And we did take action a number of months ago to put the tennis courts and the trails under the control of Simons. So right now they're kind of actually managing them, but as much as anybody issue ours.
Yeah, and there's not much maintenance to them right now because they are just grass, natural trails.
Public Works did some mowing on there this summer. But with the upcoming project for signage and benches and stuff like that, that'll improve the accessibility of it, hopefully the use of it too. Okay. Any other property line questions? We'll revisit this at our next meeting. Item 10, discussion and possible action to set our future meeting date. When we get together again.
Propose December 17th, unless if you would like to get together prior to that.
What is the date?
December 17th,
That's what day of the week?
a Wednesday.
That is a Wednesday. We'd be looking at 4 o'clock again.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody?
Oh, wait a minute, that's,
As long as it's just an hour long.
Y'all can control that.
Yeah, if somebody asks a lot of questions. it goes a little longer.
We could look the week prior on the 10th.
Better for me, but
I can't do the 10th,
Okay.
but Steve would be here, so. Not you, Steve, the other Steve, Steve Williamson.
if it's the 17th, it's the 17th.
Unless if we met earlier, 3:30,
That would help.
2:30? Yeah, because
works for us.
I've got like 20 minutes to get to the board meeting for the township. I'd be fine with 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock?
All right, 3 o'clock it
All
is.
right, 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Make sure to did it too, so.
I said, thank you.
17th, correct?
17th at 3 p.m. Future agenda items for that meeting. Oh, sorry, I skipped. Do we have correspondence? We have none. Sorry about that. So future agenda items for that meeting. We'll bring back the property line conversation. Have an agenda item for discussion and possible action on the proposal from the city, if that's what you guys want to do. I see heads nodding, so we'll put that on the agenda. Anything else we want to have on the agenda? Updates on moving extension staff probably, and an update on how things are going with the property, because if we're looking to sell Melville Hall and the gym, there's a lot of stuff in Melville Hall we got to get cleaned out.
One more thing.
Mr. Carroll.
I don't know if it needs to be that meeting, but at some point, I had mentioned that we might want to see if Habitat wants to look at the building.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything they can
Okay.
They do go into buildings that are getting ready to get demoed and salvage stuff.
We've submitted all that. We'll have SEH updated next meeting too. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any other future agenda items?
Have we put out bids yet for the demolition of those buildings?
We have not. I don't want to do that until the grant is approved.
Hearing no other future agenda items, Mr. Mackey. Second by Mr. Carroll. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.